All right, mate. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Yeah, you ready to have a crack at this book, Atomic Habits by James Clear?
I'm well ready.
You're well ready. Yes. So I read this 3 months ago. I think maybe towards the end of last year, beginning of this year, and I really enjoyed it, and I really wanted you to read it as well. And I think over the last week or so, you've gotten into it, and you said that you've enjoyed it too. It's an area that I'm particularly interested in around habits, motivation, action, how they all intertwine. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to having a chat with you about this.
Nice. Yeah, I really appreciate you recommending it to me because I've absolutely loved it. I've taken so much of it on board.
Oh, good. That's nice to hear. It's something when I was reading it, I just remember there's some real standout parts to it that I'm hoping to go through with you today. So
yeah,
I wonder whether we start out with his definition of habits and also around how they compound over time.
Yeah, it's a good place to start. That's what I got on my notes. What is a habit?
What is that? So one version he gives us is that it's repeated actions that you take over time is a simple version of it.
And he gave a few definitions, didn't he? One of them was like solutions to recurring problems.
Yeah. And in the context of the environment you're in as well.
Yeah.
And what his key point of the book is, I guess on the title it says tiny changes, remarkable results. And one key thing he focuses on is how small 1% changes over time can lead to big results over the course of a longer period of time. So he gives a number of different examples, but how 1% improvements daily can compound over the course of a year. That's one of his key points in this book.
Yeah, and I guess that's the metaphor of the title, right? That an atom is something that's so small but has so much potential and energy within it. And like something as small as a 1 minute habit that you just keep knocking away at every day, it can feel like nothing on 1 day or 2 days or a week, but in the long term of like a year or your life, it, as you say, compounds to make such a big difference.
And so something he highlights in this book is that it's not necessarily about a new habit forming over the course of 21 days. He kind of debunks that myth of 60 days and you can start a new habit. For him, it's more about casting votes for the type of person that you want to be. So he refers to it as getting the reps in. So it's not necessarily how many days you do something for, but it's more about how many times you do it, and just simply showing up is a key strategy to forming a new habit. It's also worth mentioning that he speaks about how to break down bad habits as well. So today we'll be talking about how he describes building good habits and how to kind of get rid of or minimize the bad habits in your life as well.
I guess those are the two main points of the book, right? Like he sells the idea of a habit, and then he's like, here's how to build good ones, here's how to break down bad ones. It's the same formula, but just in reverse.
Something I immediately jumped on top of, and it goes into topics around, delaying gratification and not seeing immediate results with habits. He talks about good habits. You typically see the results in the long term, whereas with bad habits, you feel the effect. You feel the bad effects long term, but you get the reward in the short term.
Yeah, the payoff is immediate for a bad habit, but a payoff for a good habit is somewhere down the line. So yeah, it goes right back to that delaying gratification from the road less traveled we talked about.
Yeah. Have you got an example of that in your own life? I know he gives a couple in the book. I'm interested. What's an example of a bad habit you might have?
So that's so in terms of the definition of a habit, there are like 4 aspects to it, right? There's the cue for it. So an example for me, let's say a bad habit I might have had over the years is eating pizza a lot. So the cue might be a sort of hunger. Also the cue, the imagery that pops into your mind of like what that would be like. And then that induces the craving, which is the second part. So you've got the cue, then the craving is like the desire to have it, the drive for it. And then you've got your response, which is actually eating it. Then is it reaction was the fourth one? Reward, yeah. So like the payoff for like how that feels in your body to then do that. And obviously, like the pizza eating, that's an immediate reward. It just feels instantaneously good as you're anticipating it and as it hits your tongue and as you're swallowing. Whereas feeling guilty, the next day or even an hour later is enough of a delay that the habit can be reinforced, even though you might feel bad for it afterwards.
And he says in regards to the reward, in particular with bad habits, it's around trying to change our internal state. So whether that's reducing anxiety, reducing uncertainty, it's an unhelpful way of responding to the feelings that we're having. That's what it's like. We're trying to address an underlying problem that we have in our life.
Yeah. So everything we do is trying to meet a need. It's just some things conflict with other needs. So like that immediate comfort of eating the pizza, for example, might be filling a need of like comfort and certainty and pleasure. But obviously in terms of longer term health and self-respect or whatever, it clashes with them. So it's about finding those habits that meet needs without compromising other needs, I guess. That'd be a definition of a good habit.
And he says with bad habits, that's why they form so readily. They seem to happen so easily because there's such a quick payoff for them. So I found that pretty interesting, that they're easier to form than good habits. Good habits often require a bit of pain. So for example, if I've had like 2 or 3 weeks off the gym or something and I'm getting back into it, I want to go to the gym and feel strong and look healthy and just have all the benefits of going to the gym. But often that takes 2 weeks until I've started to see results, or there's been that I'm feeling calmer, or just the general benefits of exercise. You don't see results straight away. So I guess back to his compounding side of it, if it's around building good habits so you can see the results down the track. And it seems obvious in some ways, but I think it's something that people really tend to struggle with. In particular with like diet and exercise, I feel like I try and be really disciplined in those small moments, and maybe we'll expand on discipline a bit later. But I know that those moments at work when there's a chocolate cake been brought in for someone's birthday, or there's just snacks going around. People will often say, "Oh, live a little. It's just a little treat. Have something like in the moment." But my response to that, and I feel maybe I'm just unfortunate that I have that tendency in those moments to think long term. But I know that it's not just that one day that someone's going to be passing around a box of sweets or chocolate. It's across the week. So when I look at when I'm feeling particularly stringent and writing down everything I eat in a week, I've noticed early on, like if I just have that one bit of cake on a Monday, then someone's passing around a chocolate on a Wednesday, then on Saturday, it all adds up. And I think people can sometimes not see that those small decisions do build up over time. And I'm like, how can I expect to see results in the gym or feel any different if I'm constantly going in those moments where I can go either way? I'm casting a vote against myself.
That's a good way to put it. Because those examples, that selling tactic of like, oh, it's just a one-time thing, like it's not true. It's because you're, like you say, you're casting a vote. You're embedding a principle that if I'm a little tempted and there's something going around, I'll take it. And each time you do that, you're embedding the principle that that's what you'll do. Whereas I really liked his idea of to build a new habit, a new good habit. It's a key aspect of it is making it part of your identity. So if you see yourself fundamentally as a healthy person, then rather than like taking that peer pressured argument of it's just a one-time thing, just in each of those scenarios are saying, what would a healthy person do? What would a healthy person do?
Yeah.
And if you constantly rack up those votes for acting the way a healthy person would do, at some point you sort of cross this threshold of embedding that core belief and seeing yourself as a healthy person, and suddenly those decisions aren't as much of a struggle anymore.
I've found that in particular with exercise and diet in particular, that there is a threshold that you cross over, and he speaks to this as well. There's at some point you start to have more votes in the case of I'm a healthy person. And also when it comes to, let's say you are a healthy person and you're maybe choosing to eat some unhealthy food, you're doing it more consciously and you've got a bit more perspective of it. So I feel a bit freer to make those choices rather than being at the whim of my bad habits.
I'm
just trying to correct my internal state when I'm not feeling good or I'm feeling a bit lazy. My center of gravity, my compass, is secure. But when I'm making those choices, it's a bit more conscious. It's more, and I can be more forgiving of myself because in the broader context, I am a healthy person. I've just made a choice to eat unhealthy today.
You're still maintaining that identity of a healthy person.
I love it in the book. He's like, decide who you want to be. And cast votes.
It's such a nice way to put it, right? Because each time a new cue hits for a bad habit is an opportunity for casting a vote for that person you've said you want to be.
And I was listening to the podcast you did with Sam Harris today, and he said, from Sam Harris's point of view, that the only way to be the person that you want to be is to improve moment by moment. So you're faced with choice points throughout the day to cast votes, like what type of person do I want to be? In that moment, that's when you're being the person you want to be. So that's good for your experiencing self and your remembering self as well. So when you look back at your week, you're able to go, oh yeah, I made a series of choices that were beneficial for me. But also in those very moments, you're making clear choices that are in line with the identity you're trying to pursue and the person you want to be.
It's finding that balance, right, between enjoying something as it's happening for the experiencing self, but also feeling good about it in hindsight. And I guess that's like the magic formula we're all trying to find. Because if you can enjoy your life and look back at it and think, oh, that was great, then job done, right?
I think that's an area of this that did confuse me at first around the experiencing self and the remembering self. But the way you've just put it then is quite clear. It's like, can we look back at the person we were and the choices we made and look at that in a positive light, and also just in a day-to-day sense feel that we're making good choices? Because when people, it links a bit to people saying, oh, just live in the moment, just do what feels good. Just one chocolate, it's just one skipping day of the gym or whatever. But that in the remembering self would not look on that favorably. And then I'd say not long after the experiencing self has made that bad choice, it's not long after that you'd feel guilt around those decisions as well.
And that's right. And the key that we often neglect is that our experiencing self is still interpreting and making meaning of our experience, and that's why we decide it's good or bad. So, for example, working out, if you've not done it for ages, then it's really uncomfortable. You feel bad about yourself because you're probably surrounded by people who look a lot fitter than you or whatever, and you're literally tearing muscle fiber, like you're ripping bits of your body. Like, of course it's going to be uncomfortable. But even over time, even if you've been, let's say, lifting weights for a long time, you're still tearing muscle fiber when you do that. It's still, your body's telling you there's a discomfort there, but the meaning you make of that discomfort is like, oh, like, I'm the man. Like, this feels great. Like,
that burn feels good.
You learn to enjoy that pain. And so then you even your experiencing self is loving it. And then obviously you look back on it and like, I feel great, I did that. So I think a misconception is that we can change the meaning of our experience to even find discomfort pleasurable in the moment.
Is that what he refers to as reframing associations?
Possibly.
Like that's come up. I think that's where, you associate an activity that you typically might not want to do with something good. So first in the gym, you're like, oh, fuck, my arm hurts because I'm lifting weights. But then eventually that same burn becomes a good burn. You're reframing the way you're seeing it. And it becomes more satisfying and enjoyable because of that.
I remember when I was a kid, like asking my mum to go to McDonald's and her telling me like, oh, like the smell of that place and the idea of eating one of those things like disgusts me. And I was like, that's so confusing to me because like they've built that machinery to be that perfect. There was a phrase for it in the book when it was like hyperstimulation or something to like really tap into our, our human desire for like salt and fat and sugar. So like, I was like, how can you find that disgusting when it's been perfectly tailored for your like human desire to crave that thing? But like, obviously later in life, it made a lot more sense that she's obviously associated like the smell of the fat, the grease, like what those things look like, what those hamburgers look like to disgust. And like, and that's where you want to be, right? At a point where the things you don't want to do, you also associate with being unpleasant. And the things
they become unattractive, haven't they? They're not even attractive anymore. It's really interesting that, isn't it? How things that used to be attractive and enticing to you become totally off-putting. That's a really great example.
You hear it a lot with smokers, right? Who quit that, like, if they've quit for a while, they look back and think they smell it and they're like, oh, that smells disgusting to me now. How could I have enjoyed that? Yeah, I hear that quite a lot.
Yeah, it's an interesting, and it's a great example of like young, impressionable Luke, like wanting mum to take him to Macca's in Yeovil, and then like your mum kind of just probably had enough bad experiences of McDonald's and feeling shit afterwards that she's just like, God, I don't want to go back there again.
And I think things like, I don't know if you've ever watched documentaries on diet or health or something, and that's really inspired you for maybe a certain amount of time. It's like, I'm going to eat this way now. And it's so these four parts of a habit he talked about: the cue, the craving, the response, and the reward. It's like we can utilize each one of those four to either build a good habit or like minimize a bad habit. So I think the one we're talking about now is the cue. We want to make it. Is it attractive, the first one?
Obvious.
Make it obvious,
so
right.
You want to make it obvious. So, example, if you want to floss your teeth after you've brushed your teeth, leave the floss next to the toothbrush in the morning.
So an obvious one I've... I've built loads of habits in the last couple of weeks since reading this book. And so I've been meditating the first thing I do after I wake up. So I've been setting an alarm, and that alarm is my cue to meditate. So that's very obvious because I'm now associating the noise of my alarm with, now's my time to meditate. And whilst we're on it, he talked about habit stacking. So we can use a habit we've built as the cue for a new habit we want to build. So now after meditating, I do my press ups. And so it's like, I finish meditating. Oh, that's my cue to now do press ups. And I really like that idea that you can sort of build habits on top of each other.
Can you run through maybe just keep going a bit with your morning routine now and go through the cue, craving, response, reward for me? I like to hear kind of how you link them together. So you've got the cue, the alarm's gone off. Yeah.
And so now it's obvious. So it's like, now's my time to meditate. I guess if I've just woken up, it might be interrupted by going for a wee, but then then it's meditate. And then, So then the craving is making it attractive, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's part of the identity thing. So I want to see myself as a meditator. I've he doesn't actually talk about this, but something I've been utilizing quite a lot is using imagery to remember all the times in the past where you've like meditated and felt so much more grounded. And I think about the person I want to be in the future for whatever situations I want to put myself in.
Yeah.
And so that makes it attractive for me, using the identity of like, I want to be a meditator.
Yeah. Great.
And then it's make it easy, I think,
that's your response. Yeah. So that's around actually doing the meditation and aspect of your morning routine in itself easy to do. So have you got a mat? Have you got the CD you're listening to already in the CD player? How do you make it easy for yourself?
Well, so it's obvious, it's attractive, and to make it easy, he talked about this 2-minute rule. So it's like, if you're trying to build a new habit, like first, just do it for 2 minutes, even if that seems like ridiculously small to you. And so before reading this book, I was doing sort of, between sort of 10-minute, half an hour meditations sporadically. And so I was like, okay, if I want to be a daily meditator, I will, there's no excuse not to do it for 2 minutes. So to make it easy, which, I've got my little, like timer next on the floor where I would sit on the cushion to meditate by the window. And,
by the window. Well, that's worth remembering. You've got like a nice space to do it that's not associated with, you don't do it in the same place you're watching TV. You're not doing it in the same place you do your work at your desk. You found a space for it, so it's perfect as well. Sorry to jump in.
No, it's a good point. Like it's just, I guess that goes back to the second one of making it attractive. It's different. Even though my eyes might be closed, having that morning light on my face is better than looking at a wall, right?
And with the 2 minute, with the 2 minute rule as well, just on the making it easy, that goes to what he says around you have to establish a habit before you can improve it.
Yeah.
So
this is a big problem I've had in my life.
Please expand on this. Yeah, go for it.
Well, it's just, this is probably one of the key ones, because I guess when you recommended the book, I kind of had a feeling of, I know this stuff. Like I've read The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. I've like studied behaviorism and know all Skinner's stuff. So it's like, I feel like it might be a waste of time in a way, but he's really made it specific to a human life and so part of it for me is when we first went into lockdown, couldn't go to the gym, which interrupted a habit I'd formed and was quite happy with. Eventually I got into these home workouts, but I was like, when I go to the gym, there's someone that like, I go to these classes and there's someone there saying like, do it. And that keeps me going. And I think I was expecting the same amount from myself on my own in my living room. And so like I kept it up for a couple of weeks, but then I was starting to dread it. And you sort of push through the dread, you get through it, you feel good about yourself for having done it. But like, did I enjoy it in the moment? Not as much.
That's it. You're missing one of those aspects of before he talked about, aren't you? It's not attractive. It's becoming harder to do as well.
Yeah. And so like, but I didn't realize, like now I see that as a warning sign. At the time I was like, this is just a way I feel and I just need to use my willpower to push through. But eventually it slid off. I woke up one morning tired and I was like, not today, I'll do it tomorrow. And so why was I saying this? So making it easy, I think, is so important to really establish, like, it's not, there's no room for that dread because it's just so automatic, like cleaning your teeth. You just do it. And once it's like that, then you can expand it. Once you're enjoying it, you can expand it. And so that's what
non-negotiable, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's like non-negotiable anymore. Yeah.
So with my meditation, I was getting to the end of the 2 minutes and thinking like, I was literally just starting to get into this. I really want to do more. And for a couple of days, I didn't let myself. But then like I've now upped it to 5 minutes, which is still like so easy in terms of myself of thinking to do it. But I'm actually, because I'm enjoying it, I want to do it for longer. So that's really helpful.
Is there a moment in which, so I'm just thinking, this is a great example with your meditating. Is there a moment in which you recognize you're like, this is happening now? Like I'm going. Like for me with the gym, it's like the moment I've walked out the door at whatever time in the morning it is, and I'm on the tram to go to the gym, I'm like, this is happening now. Like the habits began. You know, what's your moment where you just, you know, it's happening because the alarm's gone off? Is it the moment you get out of bed and sit down? Or is it literally the moment you just get out of bed?
If I understand you right, you know, like these choice points we've talked about, like once you've taken the path of not release resistance, the road less traveled, let's say, once you've taken that path, then you're just on it then, aren't you? Like it's just, it's going to happen. I guess for me with the meditating, it's having sat on the floor, I think. Yeah. Because getting out of bed, it's still easy. Like it's still not quite there. Yeah.
He talks about like reducing the friction as well. So with I guess we're kind of jumping between examples here. But I guess like with going to the gym in the morning, it's I reduce the friction of going to the gym because my bag's already packed by the door, ready to go. I've got all my day's clothes in there. I've got my lunch ready in my lunchbox in the fridge. So I literally have to pick up the bag, chuck in the lunchbox, and I'm out the door. Where it's reducing that friction. So imagine with just trying to think with meditating, you know, if you didn't have you have to go downstairs to go and grab the pillow that you're going to meditate on, or
I've just thought. So I didn't even realize this was a habit because it's so established, like cleaning my teeth. But when I get out of bed, I make my bed, and so when I'm in the middle of making my bed, I have 3 pillows, and I grab one of them and I just swing it towards the window. Like it's just become a routine of my like making the bed. So now, like after I've done that habit, there's just a pillow on the floor by the window, and like I just realized that's reducing the friction to do the meditation.
Cool. Just thinking of I suppose just tying up the 4 stages. So cue, craving, response, reward. In the final step, how is meditation for you? Feels like an obvious question because I know you, but how do you make sure that it's satisfying for you?
So sometimes, as you kind of alluded to, it's inherently satisfying in that I found that peace, and especially because I've been setting this habit of waking up earlier as well, I can wake up because that's not established yet in my sort of circadian rhythm. I'm still a bit groggy when I get out of bed. Sometimes there's that resistance to getting out of bed, and having meditated for 5 minutes, I just feel so much better, like more alert. So that can be inherently satisfying, but not always. So sometimes, as any meditator will know, you might, as much as you're trying to maintain like the focus on the breath, the sounds in your environment, the visual field, like your mind can just spiral and you can think, and 5 minutes can go by and it's like, I've just been dwelling on something for 5 minutes.
And it's a bit unpleasant.
So I think in those moments, that's where the identity thing comes in, and you can tell yourself like, look, I've casted a vote for my identity as a meditator, and like, well done, mate. Like that is good. Good for you. Like I think
you still got up, you still got on with it, you went, Whereas like if you'd gone the other way, you'd be probably, your mind would still be racing about the same stuff. You just wouldn't have sat down and meditated about it, and you'd be feeling around.
And it, without doing that consciously, it could be very easy to beat yourself up for not being as present, which obviously makes it unsatisfying, which makes it harder to establish that habit.
I feel like that's a really great example you've used there, especially because there's a number of elements to it that lead up to it as well. It's not necessarily just a simple like, I just do this. Like you recognize that there's you've got to wake up, you've got to set the scene, you've chosen the place, you've made sure it's satisfying, and you've made sure that you, to the best of your ability, turn up and do it, even if it's unpleasant. I guess the satisfying aspect of it is that you've turned up, that you've casted a vote of yourself as a meditator.
I would emphasize majority of the time the satisfaction is how I feel because of the meditating, but like I'm aware that I can't guarantee that. So I have on the in the back pocket, I have congratulating myself for showing up as a piece of satisfaction if I don't see it as a very present session.
Well, so it's a bit of self-compassion there as well, isn't it? You kind of being grateful and appreciative of yourself and your choices that you make as well. It's positive thing.
It's so funny that we've talked about this for so long, and like you asked me about my routine, and like just I want to emphasize, I won't go into all of them, but emphasize that this is one small habit that I stacked on top of about probably 15 in my morning or more. So it's interesting that we can talk about one for so long.
Yeah, well, let's should we go a bit more into habit stacking? I feel I've got an interesting perspective on it in terms of when habit stacking goes wrong. So I'm wondering whether you could talk a little bit about your experience with habit stacking and the benefits of that, and I guess in the context of your morning routine, meditation being one part of it. And then I'll throw a bit out there how I've seen the downsides to habit stacking as well. So I've definitely experienced both as well, and I am a little cautious about how gung-ho I've been about my current routine, because if that house of cards falls down, right, the whole thing can crumble. But at the moment it's like the alarm goes off and it's like I want to be a morning person. That's a piece of identity I've decided. That's part of who I want to be. So it's like there's that reward for doing that, and then that becomes the making the bed. I didn't even realize that habit until we've talked about it, but making the bed's a habit, throwing the cushion, then that's my cue for meditating. The 5-minute timer dings, that's my cue for press-ups. I change the timer to 1 minute. I just do as many press-ups as I can in a minute. That dings, I do tricep dips for a minute. That dings, and that's my cue for just getting dressed, getting my like headset on and walking out the front door. And then I've got a whole I've been listening to this like Tony Robbins morning sort of incantation, visualization, expressing gratitude thing. So like as you talked about earlier with the like once you've done it, it's up and running. That's one where once the headphones are in, it's up and running. I'm just following what he's saying. That's easy to do because I don't have to make any decisions. He's just telling me breathe like this, visualize this, do this. Do you know where you're walking as well? Is that like set amount of time, like a loop, like a 10-15 minute loop or something, or half an hour loop?
So I walk to this local park. I don't do like a quantity of loops, but I just keep going around it until I finish the.
Okay,
And then 15 minutes of that's my cue for a strength workout. And I've just been cycling through. Again, there's an app for it, so I don't have to make any decisions. It's just like I know which one I'm doing this morning. Then after that, my cue for 10 minutes of yoga. And then what I want to do after that is I've established I want that to be my cue for calling you. So I talked about at about 7:45, I'm outside having just exercised, and you're walking home from work because of the time difference. And I thought that'd be a really nice time to have a quick catch up as I'm sort of warming down and walking home. Then it's in the shower. My getting all sudded up with soap is my cue for turning on the cold tap, and I have a cold shower afterwards.
Cool.
And that's where I've got to. at the moment. I would say I could probably go on to a few more I've built throughout the day, but that's enough of a stack to realize how a whole routine can be built up. And that's all about within an hour and 15 minutes.
And do you feel the benefits of, I guess it's kind of naming it habit stacking, but do you feel that one thing leading on to another, one good habit leading on to another habit has been, it sounds like it's been clearly beneficial, because once you've done one of them, it's clear you're going to do the next one?
Yeah. So it becomes this sort of autopilot. Do. I say that I've only been doing it for a week and a half, and I know I've had periods in the past of doing similar things that have crumbled down, which is probably, I'll pass on to you for what you were going to say about when that can go wrong.
Yeah, I guess I've seen the absolute benefits of habit stacking. I've got my morning routine too. It involves some journaling on the tram ride to the gym in the morning, and I won't kind of go through all of mine because it's similar to yours, maybe cut down a little bit. But I've found that the only problem if you over habit stack is that if you forget one, you tend not to do the rest. It can crumble quite quickly. So I guess it's just a warning to myself. I notice when I don't meditate in the morning, I won't then do my gratitude and intentions afterwards. And then if I, like, by that time, it's probably it feels like it's a bit ruined. And then I won't journal on the bus into work or tram to the gym or whatever. And then I've sort of, everything's out of whack. So I wonder whether there's a warning label to over habit stacking. And I think this leads on quite nicely. There's I've just got the book here. I couldn't write it all down, but he's got a bit at the end of the book around how to recover when your habits break down. So I'm thinking about how, okay, when I've forgotten to do my well, not forgotten, right? But I've not done my morning meditation, and I'm not going to the gym, and I've forgotten to do my intention and gratitude because it's all out of whack. He's basically saying that we often fall into the habit of thinking we have to be all or nothing with our habits, and that is exactly why I don't do the rest of my morning cycle, because if I'm like, well, if I've forgotten the meditation, then what's the point? Like the day's a write-off. And I don't think I would verbalize it or say it like that, but I think internally that's what's going on. It's like, well, I've missed my chance now. So what he says is the problem is thinking that if you can't do something perfectly, you shouldn't do it at all. So I guess that's what I think is my issue I have with upholding habits, is that I'm relatively disciplined doing them, and I feel quite good about my attitude and general levels of motivation, but I feel that if I can't do them perfectly, then I shouldn't do them at all. So for example, today I didn't do some morning journaling because it's the weekend, but then I was thinking about, I know that I was going to talk to you about this, and just in general trying to keep up with the learnings of the book. So I just wrote in my journal just like 5 lines. I just did something, and that's good. And then I can look at my little habit tracker, which we might get onto, like habit tracking. I'm like, I can tick that I've done my journaling and I did my meditation. I did all this. So anyway, that's my small gripe / problem with habit stacking, and how perfection ties into that as well.
So he gave this example of this guy who wanted to lose weight, and so and he'd read the book, and so he decided, I'm going to build this habit of after work going to the gym every day, but I'm not allowed to stay longer than 5 minutes. Like, even if he was loving it, he had, like, it was midway exercise, 5 minutes gone, I have to leave. So he's kind of making himself, because it's so tempting to push yourself to the point of then it becoming unattractive, and then maybe you wait the next day, you're feeling a bit more groggy, and you feel like you have to do the same you did the day before. So I think that making it easy is a big one, which is what the problem is when you start stacking them, because suddenly if you're viewing it as one entire sequence rather than individual small things, it's now an enormous thing you have to do.
And also I'm just thinking about how you could like rush one aspect of it as well. You're not doing everything in its own right for its original purpose. I journal because I like to do that in the morning to get a lot of my thoughts out and things. But if I end up like just rushing it because it's part of a sequence, I want to get on to the next thing.
Yeah,
it makes me think a bit about how over time I'm wondering whether that routine you've got could eventually get a bit boring, and how you could maximize it or improve it.
Yeah, so the red flags that are waving for me at the moment. So I think the way having stacking would work is once you've really embedded a habit. So something like cleaning your teeth is a good example, because it's something you've probably even forgot how and when you embedded it, but it's just something will happen every day. So that would be a good habit to be a cue for another habit if you wanted to build a new habit, because you're going to do it. So I think that's the core principle of habit stacking. And maybe where I'm at risk of with the routine I've talked about having done for a week and a bit is that I've been stacking habits on top of habits that aren't really established yet. I'm enjoying it at the moment, and you can probe me as week by week to see how I'm doing, but that's where there's potentially a risk. So it's I think it's ingrain a habit, trust that it's like brushing your teeth, and then stack another one on top of it.
Yeah, it's one of the key one of his key ideas, I'd say, in the book, that a lot of people, when I've seen other people talking about this, they talk a lot about habit stacking and the benefits of it. But that's an interesting side about I hadn't seen, that you don't want to habit stack on top of habits that aren't fully established. So is it kind of habit
building
stacking
on a loose foundation, right?
One thing at a time. Something I wanted to speak to you about that I think could be worth hearing from you, because you gave a great explanation of it, was around we derive the same amount of pleasure in anticipating the result or the goal as the same as experiencing the goal. And I'm wondering, I know that we both ran marathons as well, so I'm just wondering whether you could tie that example into explaining around anticipatory goals versus actually experiencing the goal itself, because he talks a lot about how once we've achieved a goal, we're kind of back to where we were. There's a lot of anticipation towards the goal, but it shouldn't be about goals. It should be more about process. So, for example, a marathon isn't about running a marathon. It's about becoming a good runner and maybe doing more of that across your life. But I know me and you did marathons I don't think we planned on doing more than one. I'm not ever doing one again because it was horrid. I know yours was pretty grim. So I'm just, that just made me think about, I know it's a bit of a broad way of explaining it, but how we had a singular goal to do one thing, and it wasn't really identity based.
Right.
So there was
so there are two things there. So the first one is this idea of anticipation and reward, and there's loads of studies on this, that we think of our dopaminergic system as that payoff for eating the pizza, that pleasure of having the next drink or that cigarette. But what drives habits, so there's two aspects to our drive system: is anticipation and payoff or reward. And actually what drives habits isn't so much the reward but the anticipation. It's the craving part where people get addictions. When if you're gambling on the slot machine all day, what keeps you going is more that urge to keep going, and sometimes the payoff isn't even that great. This can be a problem with people when we like keep moving the goalposts, because like we might achieve our goal and then it's like it's a bit anticlimactic, and suddenly but that drive to get this thing we think we're going to get is enough to just move the goalpost. Oh, maybe I'll feel great when I get this promotion, or I earn this amount of money, or I get this car or this house or whatever. So that ties in because I think we think our habits are built on the rewards when actually it's the anticipation. In terms of, I'm not. Can you help me understand how you are linking that to the marathon thing?
Well, I guess we did that as like a once-off thing, didn't we?
Yeah.
Like that wasn't a longer term goal of ours to become a runner. I just remember that feeling of, there's a lot of anticipation about like, oh, how cool is it going to be when I finish it? That's going to feel great. And then I remember crossing that finish line and all this like joy flooding in, and joy, relief, confusion, like disbelief as well. It's quite an incredible feeling. But I just remember it not quickly. Like I derived a lot of satisfaction and joy from that, and it had a lot of meaning for me. But like the moment, not long after it was done, I kind of returned back to baseline, because I was like, well, I don't want to keep running. Like,
but this is a really good case in point, right? So you're saying that the reward felt incredible, but you're, in terms of how attractive it is for you now, you described it as horrid. So it's like,
it's not nice. Yeah,
it's and it's not a habit, right? So
no,
it's just a one-off thing you did, which you enjoyed the reward of.
And I guess it makes you worth thinking about, like, what things do we actually pursue in our lives, like separating the two. Like, am I doing something once off just because I want to do it and challenge myself, or when it comes to doing things that I want to do more permanently and more on an ongoing basis, it's worth thinking a bit more about enjoying the process, because the process of training for a marathon wasn't enjoyable either. Like none of it was particularly enjoyable. But I'm thinking about longer term goals of like health goals, looking, I don't know, you might want to look a certain way, or lose weight or something like that. How important it is to enjoy the process, and make the whole process attractive, not just the end goal. Because with the marathon, just the end goal was attractive, and I know how that felt when it was done. Yeah. But
I think if I would reframe what I think is going on, is that like you have an identity of someone who wants to experience life and try new things. And like doing a marathon once was casting a vote for being that person who tries new things.
Yeah.
Doing it twice isn't a vote for that anymore, because you've done it. And it doesn't sound like you want to be a runner. Like, that's not an identity you're desiring. If it were, then we would want to help you like find ways to actually find pleasure in the run itself. Like, some people talk about getting that endorphin hit and like getting to the point where they actually love it. But because it's not something like you find other ways to keep fit, doesn't sound like it's something you want particularly.
I just want to throw in an example like that was a bit separate to daily habits and more around just kind of achieving one-off things and how.
I want to go into how to like minimize and get rid of bad habits. I wonder if you've, since reading this book, if that's inspired you to kind of cut out something you've noticed you don't want to do as much.
Yeah, I think that's good thing to move on to, because I'm feeling like we've dug into the things I was super keen on as well. So I'm happy to talk about that. I'm thinking what example to give. I guess phone use has been something I've been really conscious of the last year. Recently, it's become a bit more difficult because of everything that's going on, that I feel like I'm using it more to make even calls like this, and at work we're doing interactive meetings and things like that. But in general, I made a goal. Well, it started out before I read this book. I made a goal to cut my phone use down in terms of screen time.
Yeah.
On my phone. So I want to cut my screen time down to 1 hour a day. So I suppose I'll talk a bit about it, and then I'll go through the process. So my initial tactic was to start off by making it easy for myself. So at the time, I think I was just getting a bit carried away with it. And I mean, I was texting a lot of people, and I was putting up a lot of content. So I was going some really cool trips in a short period of time. So I was on it a lot. So when I first started the goal, I tried to make it easy for myself by setting myself something quite realistic. I'm like, okay, let's cut my screen time down to 2 hours 30 a day. Something I can definitely do.
Did you know what it already was? Like, had you measured it already?
It was, I think in the weeks running up to it, I just sort of totally lost all sense of discipline and control over it.
I'm not like asking for a number. I'm curious, like if you already knew something, like, oh, this is where I'm at already, and this is where I'm going to try and bring it down to.
I said it, it must have been something like 3 to 4 or something. Something that I was unhappy with. But I started off by picking something that was doable. So like the guy going to the gym, like I can just go to the gym for 2 minutes. That's easy. I can get that done. So I suppose I'm jumping a bit onto around how I made it easy for myself to build a good habit with the phone. But I suppose in getting rid of it, I made it difficult. I'm trying to think. How have I made that difficult for myself?
By setting
I suppose I'm almost talking about a good habit of phone use rather than getting rid of the bad habit of bad phone use. But I'll keep going.
It's
I'll keep
two sides of the same coin. No, I think it's minimizing a bad habit. If you're saying that you were on your phone too much and you wanted to less that time.
Yeah. Okay. I'll keep going with it, and chuck it. Yeah. Help me out if needed. So what I did in the morning was, ways of doing that was, in the morning, I said I wouldn't turn on my phone until I got on the tram after going to the gym. So I'd normally be in the gym by say 6:30 after doing meditation and all that sort of thing. So I wouldn't check my phone until I got on the tram.
So, and prior to that, when would you usually check it?
I would usually check it like when I wake up.
So your bad habit was waking up was a cue to check your phone. So I'm wondering, like, what did you use to stop doing that?
I bought an alarm clock.
Oh, nice one. Yeah.
In the morning. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, I didn't realize. Yes, I bought this alarm clock that it's a cool one. It like gets lighter as like half an hour before you wake up. I don't think that's important, but like,
mate, sorry to interrupt, but I literally this week have done the exact same thing. I bought an alarm clock because I'm like, I don't want my phone to be an alarm. So it's interesting.
Yeah. Oh, great. Yeah. So that was my first. I did a fair bit of reading on like how to cut down your phone use and things like that as well. So one's around putting your. Yeah, I'll get into it. So one of them is about putting the apps that you are trying to avoid using in folders.
Oh yeah.
Like, so you have to go into a folder to get onto the app. I've set screen time limits on each of the apps. So it gives you, so I put 10 minutes of use on Facebook, and my purpose, I'm trying to be purposeful with my use. So I go on there to check if any of my favorite like speakers or philosophers or bands are releasing new music. That's literally the only reason I go on there.
And what happens after 10 minutes?
It goes, you have 1 minute left.
Right. So there's a real like cue to use it purposefully and with what's the word I'm thinking of? Begins with D.
Intentionally.
Oh yeah, intentionally. That'll do. Don't know what the D word was.
That's all right. But yeah, so it's
deliberately.
Deliberately. Yeah, exactly. I know. What's it? Yuval Hari. Is that his name?
Yeah.
He talks about that, like how technology is so much stronger than we realize on us, and it's been designed by psychologists who know how the brain works. So you need to be purposeful with your use for it. So So in addressing this bad habit, I set limits on different apps.
Yeah.
So that was one thing I did. You can make the screen darker. You put it on a dark screen. I also,
mate, I set mine. I found a way to make your phone black and white, so I did that as well.
Yeah, perfect. And then another thing I did was to change the way my notifications work on my phone.
Yeah.
So what I've done, it's weird. I've tried different things with this, but it's worth thinking about. So one thing I did was I was working casually at the time. So casual workers, where I work, you'd get called up randomly and go, "Hey, do you want a shift?" And if you don't pick up your phone, like you're missing out on work, therefore you're missing out on money. So what I did was I set work phone numbers to have a different vibration in my pocket. So I just made up these vibrations that were a bit like nuts, so I could like properly feel it. So whereas before, every time my phone would buzz in my pocket, I would pick up, because I'm like, oh fuck, is that work? Could that be work? And then every time it's just like someone.
It's a really good idea. I suppose you could set it so only certain people could get through as well, right? I don't know if you can. There must be a setting. So it's like, if it's like I want complete silence, but if it's a call from work to earn money, then I do want that to ring. You
literally can do that. I'm definitely on the phone I've got anyway, iPhone. So there was that I did as well. There was thinking about how I put how notifications showed up on my phone on the screen. I've tried different things with this, because sometimes when you take off notifications, you can become curious to, have I got a notification? But then if they just come up on the screen. I guess it was just a lot around changing my association with it as well. It's like, okay, I'm the sort of person that, like, when I check my phone, that's when I'm responding. If there's a message, I'm going to respond. I'm not going to like check it and text back later. So I've got these kind of a few texts in my mind. I'm like, okay, I should text back after I finish this one task, and giving myself mental space. So
I'm only going to check it if I'm prepared to reply to whatever I've seen on there. That's a really good one. Yeah. So I guess that comes under the identity thing, really, isn't it? Like I'm a deliberate phone user or something like that.
Yeah. And then I guess finally, to just give a final example, I just at work, I would put it in my bag, and I would not like just make it harder to get hold of.
So that's the key thing, right? Make it obvious or make it invisible.
I made it invisible. Hit the phone.
Literally made it invisible.
I made it unattractive because I wasn't having like the phone flashing and buzzing and beeping at me. So it's unattractive because it's not like nice to look at, really.
So that's for the craving bit. Yeah.
That's for the craving bit. For the response, making it difficult. I think it was more around I made it easy not to. I don't know if that's the same as I made it easy not just to go on it, because it was in my bag and I was reassigning my identity as someone who doesn't use their phone as much. I mean, this is something that's definitely slipped off during COVID for sure, because I'm now communicating a lot more over the phone.
Yeah, the environment's changed.
And then generally making it like unsatisfying. I guess as I became the sort of person who used the phone less and was more in the real world and more present, and was learning about how that helps me pay attention, how I'm listening better, how I'm just a better friend, I'm more present in my interactions with people, I'm better at work, I'm less distracted. Hundreds of reasons. Like, it made it unsatisfying to be distracted. And just in doing this as well, your awareness would go up about when other people are using their phones, when so you make, I guess you can, it's unsatisfying to be around other people who are on theirs. So I guess in turn you become the person who's more present. So people are more present with you.
As
well.
Like if you're sat at a coffee table, someone's just texting, like, and you're just sat looking at them, like that's different to if you're both just sat texting, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I think I think we've kind of gone through the different stages, but that's something for me, it's an ongoing challenge based on the requirements of life and work, and, you know, do my banking on my phone. Like, everything's on your phone now. And that's a goal of mine and a habit I'm trying to build. So something I'll take away from this is trying to re-establish that. So what I've done is I've slipped off on that. And what he refers to in this is that if you fall off the wagon, like just don't miss twice. Don't skip twice. Because if you have 2 days off in a row where my screen time went up, like, was over the limit I'd set it, and I was using it more than I wanted to or should, then you've missed a streak. Whereas like 1 day is fine, you can kind of forgive yourself for that. But if you start casting more votes, it's basically like, he gives a really great example of like, even if you don't feel like going to the gym, just do like, I don't know, 10 press ups, 10 sit ups, 10 tricep dips. Like, you're not going to lose the muscle that you've built.
Right.
But if you don't go, you will lose muscle. So simply just like, even if you're just doing it badly, like, it's still better than doing nothing. Yeah.
Like if on a bad day you can just not get worse, like, that's really good, right?
I think that's a really important thing to talk about, I guess, in relation to phone use as well. If I've had a bad morning on it, I'm just like, oh shit, I've used my phone too much this morning. Like, the tendency is to be like, well, fuck, the rest of the day's gone. I might as well just not think about it anymore. Whereas, like, actually, I've got the whole afternoon. Like, life isn't the series of 24-hour cycles. I can start again at mid. I hadn't thought about it. I can start again at midday. I've got to the rest of the day to kind of cast a good vote for myself. I don't need to write off the whole day because that's what it says. If you have an unhealthy meal, like, you can follow that up with a healthy dinner.
Yeah.
Whereas my tendency, and I don't know if yours is or not, but like, if I haven't gone to the gym, then I probably will eat badly. And then because of that, I might be like, oh, fuck, I'll have a beer tonight with dinner. Like, it all is kind of like the opposite of habit stacking. It's like negative stacking. It what would you call it? Compounding downwards. Well, it can get worse quite quickly. The ball can get rolling really quickly for me. So
and we've got all these associations. Like, it's weird, as well as having an identity as a healthy person, I also have an identity as an unhealthy person, which can lie dormant. But like you say, if I tap into it with sleeping in, like not doing the workout I planned to, buying a pizza, then it like clicks into my old I guess identity, which, as you said, has a chain of associations: beer, cake, like going to bed later. Like, there's a whole package deal that comes with tapping into a bad habit again.
And I think with that as well, you can sort of wake up 2 weeks later and you're like, fuck, I've not been sleeping properly. I've been eating rubbish. I've barely exercised. There's an element of needing to keep on top of this and trying to get back on it. You know, those days where you've just eaten badly for like 3 days in a row, but you could have nipped that in the bud after the first bad meal.
Yeah.
You could have been like, right, I had that meal, enjoyed it in the short term, but now I have a healthy dinner.
So it's almost like having old bad habits being a cue for something. Like, it's like, oh, so this is a cue to either tap into my identity, to watch. For me, like, there are, a couple of documentaries that I know would have inspired me in the past. So it's like, okay, so I've had pizza and cake. Maybe this evening I watched that old documentary, and that helps reestablish that identity and makes what I've just done, makes continuing this pattern more unattractive, something like that.
He talks about behavior that is rewarded immediately is repeated, and behavior that is punished immediately is avoided. So I'm thinking about just what we're talking about. If you had that bad meal and you're not feeling great about it, I'm wondering what he means in terms of punishment to make sure you don't do it again, because obviously it doesn't seem healthy to be overly self-critical of yourself when you've slipped up and you've made a mistake. But in punishing yourself, I suppose that's what he means, just making it unsatisfying. Make it like an unsatisfying thing to do.
I don't think you have to punish in terms of like self-condemn, but making
you have to put
the thing
a cross on your habit tracker or something. Not so much punishment, but
one thing I want to talk about with minimizing bad habits is pointing and calling. So
yes,
in the book, he gave this example of the Japanese rail system where if you go there, you'll see people, like the people who work there, you know, pointing at the doors and be like, you know, doors open, the time is this. And just like as a health and safety routine, they point and label every step of the way between, you know, the train coming in, people getting off, people getting on, doors closing, train leaving.
Right. Yeah.
And part of that is to like somehow minimize mistakes.
Yeah.
Which there's evidence to suggest it works. And he suggested like using this as a way to sort of catch yourself. And so I've been trying this out. So with the phone example,
nice.
Yeah, I live on my own, so I can get away with this. But like with the phone example, I will catch myself like going to pick it up when like I'm probably not willing to in that moment respond to any notifications, and I'm not like planning to call anyone. I just have this craving to check it.
Yeah.
And so I just when I do that, I've been trying to be like, I want to pick up my phone and like pointing at it and saying it out loud, and it just makes it so obvious. And then I feel like I've created a choice point then, and I can choose not to do it. Again, I'm working on my computer, and it's like I'm about to slide down to go to check my email for no real reason, and I want to check my email, and I found that really helpful.
Yeah, because that's a lot around. Obviously, you built like a habit or a tendency to reach for your phone or check your email. So, and that's gone on for so long, or an amount of time where it's kind of slipped into your unconscious. So by pointing and calling, you're bringing it to conscious, like to a conscious level, and then you have a choice. Like there's a quote he puts in the book. I might read it out.
Go for it.
It's a Carl Jung quote. It says, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you'll call it fate." Yeah. Oh, that really hit me.
It's a great.
I think something I found interesting with this though is that it's like you're in doing that, you're bringing something from the unconscious into the conscious, but then you almost want to like put it back in the unconscious again.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like bring it out of consciousness, see it for what it really is, make a choice how you want to respond, and then do that enough times that it pops back down into your unconscious and becomes a new habit. So in terms of turning a bad habit into a good habit, I feel like that's the path. Like be aware of it, see it for what it is, choose how you want to deal with it. What's a better response you could have? Act out that response multiple times, get the reps in, embed it into your identity, and eventually it'll just seep back into the unconscious. So imagine like an interesting exercise would be to really like look at your morning routine, or even just what you do day to day, and pointing and calling could really highlight that. It's like, oh fuck, I've reached for my phone way more than I thought. Or like actually
if I'm saying that like 5 times an hour, it's like, wow, it makes it more obvious what I'm doing. Right?
And that's what I did with at one point, doing a food diary. So I could and doing an exercise diary as well, just looking. I did it for a month. I said, right, I'm going to look at exactly what I'm eating so to get a real good perspective on like how often am I just saying fuck it and just having that piece of cake at work, and then exercise, like how often am I doing, you know, certain workouts or working certain parts of the body? Is there something I'm missing here? Is that why I'm not happy with this aspect of it? So
this is measurement, right?
Yeah.
You talked about measuring your habits, and it's so it's like if you let's say you wanted to cut down on your drinking, before doing any cutting down, it might be helpful just to write down exactly what you have drank that week without any attempt to try to cut it down. Just acknowledge what you're doing. That's a great starting point. And so it works both ways, right? And then you can also use that as momentum and identity. So like if you've got what does he call it? Is it the habit? It is habit tracking, isn't it? So like if you can see like, look, you know, for 30 days I've done this habit, it can like help spur you along.
And that's what I've got in my diary. I bought one of these diaries a couple of years back, and each week it's got a habit tracker. Oh, yeah. So I write down my habits, and I'll like tick it off throughout the week. And on a Sunday, I'll always do like a bit of a journal review, and I'll look across my week and go, okay, I exercised 5 days out of 7 this week. I meditated 12 times out of a possible 14. I try and do 2 a day. And yeah, I think there's real value in taking some time to work out what are the things you do on a daily basis, and are they? Yeah, in the book he talks about that. He goes, unpack like what you do on a daily basis.
He calls it a habit scorecard. So
habit
it's like
scorecard. So I forgot about this. Yeah.
Review your life first. Yeah. It's like things like I didn't even realize, like making my bed is just a habit. It's so ingrained. It's like cleaning your teeth. It's a habit. Like the way you cook, the way you wash up, the whatever, like so many of your daily routine is a habit. And he's like, think of all the habits you do throughout the day, from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed. And he's like, write them all down, and then like decide for yourself whether you think they're good, bad, or neutral. And you can, celebrate the good ones. You can look at minimizing the bad ones. You can use the neutral ones as cues for new habits you want to stack. So yeah, that was a real foundation, wasn't it?
What's an example of a neutral one? Just so people, everyone got an idea what a good habit is and a bad habit. Would neutral be like brushing your teeth, because it's just sort of is what it is? Or,
no, I'd say that's a really good habit.
Good one. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard. I can't. It's hard to think what a neutral one might be.
I guess something just kind of relatively indifferent, like tying up your shoelace, like something like that. I don't know. Yeah, I guess you could decide for yourself.
It's hard not to think, is it? Or like it's either good or bad. I don't know. You might.
I guess if it's not clear, then it doesn't need an action, right? If it's a good one, like I should be doing more of this. I should celebrate this. I can build other habits around this. You'll know when a habit's bad because you can see the way. Well, actually, maybe you won't, but like you, if you look at it clearly, you'll see whether that's good or bad in your life. Whether it's contributing to the person.
This isn't quite the same because it's not a habit, but he also talked about just writing down things that happen every day. So like the sun rising, getting hungry, like things that it's not a habit, but you could use as cues if you wanted to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I guess they're sort of neutral, but they're not really habits, so it doesn't really count.
I wish I had more natural cues in my life.
Yeah? You mean like, cues from nature?
Yeah, like when the sun came up, then I'd meditate, or when I was hungry, then I'd eat, rather than I eat at this particular time. Like, And I guess there's something I was thinking about and listened to in his chat he had with Sam Harris was around not just doing habits, kind of just in the morning for the sake of it, but how can we redo them throughout the day? So we use the example of meditating, doing short 1-2 minute meditations throughout the day. I wonder if that's something you'd thought about, whether sometimes you do a habit and you kind of, right, I've done that for the day, but really the idea of a habit is to ingrain it into your life and allow it to affect you throughout the day.
I think because I listened to that too, I think Sam Harris meant specifically meditation isn't something, so something like, let's say, going for a run, that's not something you'll ever want to be doing all day, every day, right? It's something you might want in your life a particular a number of times a week. Whereas although you might have a structured meditation, mindfulness, being present of like current sensation and what's happening, is the idea of the practice is to help embed it into your being. So obviously, I think it's an exception, because there are things that, well, almost all other things you don't want to be doing all the time. Whereas being more present in the moment is probably something we're constantly wanting to do Like, right now, I don't want to be off thinking about what I'm going to have for lunch or what happened yesterday. I want to be engaged in this talk with you. And that's almost something I always want to be happening. So I think to be honest, I think that's specific to mindfulness.
Specific to mindfulness, yeah, because with like the gym, you do the gym in the morning, so you kind of feel good for the rest of the day, but you don't want to like keep exercising throughout the day. Like you've done your gym in the way you wouldn't want to do. Like, I mean, you obviously could, but like,
I think there are little things like little stretches after you get up from a chair or something. But
cool. Thanks, Matt. I feel like we've covered a lot of what I wanted to speak about today.
I've got one more thing I want to go into.
Yeah, I was going to say, any final thoughts you had or any final questions?
So, with you talked about making the unconscious conscious and making it unconscious again. He talked about like reviewing habits. So, for example, there's actually evidence that once you've established a good habit, there's potential for it, once it gets unconscious again, to get slightly worse. Not worse in terms of quantity, but worse in terms of quality. So let's say a habit is to practice the guitar every day. You might be very consciously, fingering an F chord, but eventually that will become unconscious because you want it to. But if you've built a slightly bad habit in like the way you hold your wrist or the way you're holding a particular finger, you're at risk of injury. So that's an example of like, even though you've built good habits, you might want to periodically check them for if they can be tweaked and to bring them back into the conscious a bit and then embed them back in a bit. So you talk about that reviewing phase.
Look at them a bit clearer, and even that can involve getting someone else's opinion involved as well. It's kind of, you imagine a professional singer who tours all year round, and might help them like once a year just go to like a singing teacher and be like, hey, am I still using a good singing technique here, or am I still doing this as well as I could have? It's easy to I can see how the quality could go down if it becomes so ingrained that it's unconscious. And I guess that's where just regular reflections and also just an increase in your awareness, so you're able to kind of watch your habits and how they play out on a day-to-day basis.
I think he was saying more like I don't know, like reviewing quarterly or something. Like every few months I'm just going to take a step back, zoom the lens up of my life, look at how my routines are going, think how I want to tweak them, and then get them back into the unconscious. Because you don't want to be constantly on top of yourself, because that's the whole point, right? You want habits to be you want them to be unconscious. You want to not have to be putting effort into every decision. You want to just flow with life, but in a way that is also taking you a direction you want to head. So it's these sort of occasional stepping out to review what you're doing.
Makes me think maybe I'll start not doing weekly reviews or something. I might try doing one every fortnight. That'd be interesting. Because I kind of every week I'll look and go, oh, did I do 7 out of 7 days on this? But I wonder whether I'd get a bit more perspective whether I did, every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks, rather than like being on top of myself. And interesting. Now it's good. It's nice how at the end of the book he goes through stuff like that. The problems with building, habits if they, become too unconscious over time, and habit tweaking, things like that. It's a really great.
That's
book.
Kind of a bit more advanced, isn't it? Like that's like the end of the book. Once you've established a load of good habits, I guess most of us are back at the beginning, really trying to just get the good ones in place and minimize the bad ones.
Yeah. So, I guess to finish off, what would be your main takeaway or couple of takeaways from the book? So, and how are you going to implement them in your life?
So, for me, I think the bits that were like most inspiring and new was the identity associating identity with habit formation. So it's like I'm not just trying to meditate 2 minutes a morning. Like I want to see myself as a meditator like that. And like I'm not just wanting to do this exercise each day. I want the identity of a fit, healthy person. Like for me, that's really helped to, so far it's been a short time, as I said, but helped to keep these things going when I've perhaps been tempted not to, or something like that. So that was a really. Oh, actually, I probably have also found that most helpful with bad habits. So I think I mentioned to you the other day, there was this one night. So another habit I've been forming is intermittent fasting. So I've tried to, start eating later in the day and finish eating earlier in the day. So it's like I have sort of about 16 hours, including where I'm sleeping, where I'm not eating. And one evening I was so hungry. No, not I wasn't really. No, that's the wrong way to put it. I was really craving pizza. I was a little bit hungry, but I was really craving pizza. And like, as I got this craving, I could see like the Domino's box in my mind. I could see like the cheese stringing off as I was peeling it. I could smell the garlic and herb dip. And I was like, what am I doing to myself? Like, I wasn't choosing this. It felt involuntary. But like, to tell myself like, I want to cast a vote for being a healthy person, I think was the most helpful thing. Way I got around that. So yeah, identity for me was one of the key points. And then secondly, the with the 4 steps of a habit, I think my troubles in the past have come from there's an irony to this, I'm noticing, but doing too much too soon and then getting overwhelmed, which time will tell whether I'm doing that again. Yeah. I guess by talking about it on the internet, hopefully that's enough accountability that I'll keep going. But like, starting a new habit of doing a half an hour exercise routine and not being aware that, what you really want is to say, I'll do press-ups for 1 minute and like, just do that every day until that's ingrained. And then you can stack another one on top. Like that for me has been really helpful to sort of tell myself it's okay to make habits as small as possible when I'm starting them off fresh. That's something I've probably not done enough before, which is why the whole House of Cards has tumbled in the past.
Oh, glad you got a lot out of this book. Actually, that was I loved it. So I was really glad you jumped onto it when we said we were going to speak about this one. I thought it'd be a great one to talk about.
What stood out for you as the things you've most got out of it?
I would definitely. I won't repeat what you said, but around making habits part of the identity, like that's clearly been a big part for me. And it's nice to reflect on that's something I was already doing in a couple of aspects of my life already. With the gym, like there's some things that have just become so non-negotiable in my life that I'm like, I'm the sort of person who goes to the gym or exercises. I guess the other part I've just been made in going back through this again and talking with you, it's just made me aware of how quickly the cards can crumble if I miss one part of my routine or one habit, how it can affect other ones. And I'm well aware that in particular with diet and exercise, those two seem very linked. And just the bit around, obviously not being hard on myself, but also not making it worse. It's not about perfection, but it's about sometimes when you're tired, you're irritable, you're not really in the mood. Sometimes it's simply about just showing up, just doing something just to keep it going, because you may feel a bit better tomorrow. You might have a bit more motivation, and how that will continue to keep me motivated, knowing that like I am the sort of person who, no matter how tired, no matter what's going on in my life, will still show up and do the things that I know to be good for me. That's the main reminder that I've got from this.
Yeah. There's Marshall Rosenberg, who kind of created nonviolent communication, has this saying he says a lot, which is, if something's worth doing, it's worth doing poorly.
Wow. Okay.
Which is kind of what you just said then. It's like, if I'm feeling crap, just show up, like just do it badly. Like, that's fine. You don't have to be perfectionistic about it. Just like, it's almost, those are the wins, right? When you show up, even when you're feeling crap, even if you don't really have a particularly good exercise, workout, or whatever. It's just like, you're keeping that habit going. It's easy to do well when you're feeling great.
And on a real level as well, like even when you are tired and you still do a bit of exercise, or you still eat a healthy meal, or you still meditate, in general, you probably will just feel a bit better afterwards anyway.
Yeah.
So like, even as a side note, as the kind of the result of that behavior, and that habit, you still will probably feel a bit better afterwards as well. But that's a really interesting reflection. Yeah.
You can always start again.
Can always start again. Yeah.
Thanks, mate.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I was really looking forward to speaking about this one with you. It's it's probably one of my favorite books of 2019, I'd say.
Cool.
So definitely in the top 3 that I read.
It was really well written as well. So like clear sentence structure, like clear structure of the entire book. I appreciated that.
Yeah, he's a very down to earth, real guy. So if anyone listening ever watches any of his interviews, or you want to read the book, he's got quite a unique story as well, how he came to analyze his habits, and went through a lot of changes in his life, and starting from scratch to build new habits. Really enjoyable read, easy to read, and a few new ideas out there that inspired me. Cool. I'm wondering whether you could just do a quick blurb on what we're talking about next week before we go.
Good point. You tell me, I've forgotten.
It's Nathaniel Branden, 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem.
I thought we were doing mindset.
We're doing mindset then. Mindset by Carol Dweck. There we go. All right,
I remember now. Mindset
by Carol Dweck.
Yeah. We'll do that one. Good to chat, mate.
Cool. Yeah, nice one, mate. I'll chat to you
next
soon.
time. Bye.
Yeah, brother. Bye.